From the Big Night Media Studios at the Boston TD Garden, this is the Word on the Street podcast, hosted by Mick Morrissey and Mark Goodale.
Welcome, Mick. So good to see you again on the podcast. How you been?
I've been good, but I've been missing you, Mark. You've been on the road, I think, now for, is it 6 weeks in a row?
Last 6 weeks in a row. I think I've actually been in 7 cities in 6 weeks, maybe 8.
And it's mostly strategy engagements for you.
Mostly
right?
Strategy engagements, yes.
Yeah.
And amazingly, what I'm seeing, so many the firms I've seen anyway in the last 6 weeks, still doing very well. Strong financials, lots of optimism, and it just doesn't seem to stop.
So it doesn't necessarily surprise me, Mark. You know, the industry has just been on a remarkable ride, right, Katharine?
It has. I mean, the good times are still rolling. We're in our 14th year of expansion in the industry, so it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, in many ways, this is, we like to think of it, as you know, as the golden age, one of the golden ages for our industry. It's been 14 years of almost consecutive growth, top line wise, profitability is at an all-time high, backlogs are strong, balance sheets are robust, and there's a lot of optimism. And at the same time, right, Mark, there's a lot of new CEOs taking over in the industry at this time. And while things are great, we got AI out there, right? We got all these new opportunities and challenges.
Well, speaking of new CEOs, relatively speaking, successful CEOs, somebody I've seen in the last couple of weeks in one of those 6 or 7 cities I've been in, we have Chad Brown today, CEO of Thompson Holdings, the employee-owned parent company behind Thompson Engineering, Watermark Design Group, and a growing family of businesses spanning engineering, architecture, environmental services, technology, and consulting. Thompson is currently ranked 127 on the ENR Top 500 list. Now, let me just say this before we introduce Chad officially here. Chad did not come up through the industry as an engineer or an architect. He is an attorney by training who spent more than 2 decades helping shape Thompson's ownership structure, governance, risk management, M&A strategy, foundation, corporate services, and ESOP before stepping into the CEO role in 2025. And that gives Chad a unique perspective on leadership, growth, ownership, and what it takes to build an enduring employee-owned enterprise. Chad, welcome to the street.
Well, I'm honored to be here. This is exciting. What a great city you have first here in Boston. What a great sound studio here for Word on the Street. So happy to be here with you guys.
I was just glad that you didn't have any other accomplishments. Because
That's right.
It's getting a little
I was
long.
wondering if you got that from Chat GPT or what, but that was very gracious. Very gracious.
You're like the Swiss Army knife of CEOs. You do everything.
But what a neat city. I came into the airport June 1st today, expecting to be hot, humid, like it was in Alabama when I left, and it was 55 degrees with a crisp breeze in the air. So welcome to Boston.
We do aim to disappoint, right, Mark?
And thanks for bringing that with you, Chad. We appreciate it.
As a fellow Southerner, it was a nice cooling, wasn't it?
Very nice. Very nice surprise.
There you go.
Well, it's great to have you here nonetheless. So how the heck does a lawyer end up leading a diversified professional services enterprise? Because most firms like the one you are the CEO of are led by engineers or architects, but you came up through law, business degree, the business side of it. How'd you end up there?
So, great question. And when I began in college, I pursued that business degree with a concentration in finance and was thinking about getting my MBA, but really had an attraction to the legal side as well and had a passion for business and law at that time. They had a mentor program at Birmingham Southern, and I shadowed a lawyer that was in-house. So I left there, went to a medium-sized law firm in Mobile, and was there for about 2.5 years. And y'all know I'm high energy. And so the law firm environment was pretty low energy. Yeah. Lawyers would roll in at 8:30 with a frown, half grin, leave at 5:30 with a frown and half grin. And I realized I really wanted to be part of something dynamic and exciting, and this opportunity presented itself at Thompson, and so that was a transition in amongst itself. 200 employees. They took the bold move of hiring an in-house counsel. General counsel said, will you also be the director of HR? And I said, sure. I didn't know a lot about HR, but nothing like on-the-job training. And the rest is history. Here we are 24 years into the journey. And really just, Thompson's been just a great place to spread my wings. They've given me opportunities, as you mentioned, without going through each of those, they've given me opportunities to really grow and get immersed in the business. So when that opportunity presented itself for me to be considered as a candidate for the succession planning process, it was a natural fit to pursue that.
So it's interesting, right? So they brought you on as general counsel when there were 200 employees.
Yes.
Highly unusual in our industry to have an internal counsel at that size, or even at 400 or 500 employees. And then you're one of 8%, Chad, right? So when you look at the ENR top 500, only about 8% of CEOs are non-engineers or non-technical folks, right?
Yes.
They're either from public accounting or from the legal world. And what we have identified as one connection is, more often than not, for those firms that are led by somebody from public accounting or somebody with a legal background, it's typically higher performance than a similar firm.
Well, that's great. Well, we have a great team. You saw our team, Mark, at our recent strategy session. We've got, for our disaster response company, we've got leaders in the industry in disaster response. For Thompson Engineering, we have a leader from the industry leading that technical operational side that's got an engineering degree. Same with the architectural side, and same with the technology company. Strong brand presence, key client initiatives, and together, I think that's a very powerful combination. To get all of those skills together in a leadership team is special.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, I have to ask you, as a lawyer in law school, you're taught to think like a lawyer and be very risk averse, yet as a CEO, you need to take risks. How have you had to kind of unlearn a lot of those deeply ingrained things you learned from studying law and turning that into being a good CEO?
Going from saying no to saying yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's a great.
I like that one.
That's a great question, and I can remember the first day at the at Thompson. You wore suits back then, or at least coat and tie. Folks would come by and look and say, "Oh my gosh, we have a lawyer back there," and so then you think every contract's going to be perfect, but you get broken out of those habits pretty quickly to realize you've got to mix the business and the risk side together. So I would say that transition was probably 6 to 12 months, where you put the business hat on and take away the legal hat. And isn't that funny though?
I love that. I'd love to hear, was there a moment when you kind of stopped and went, okay, I'm thinking like a CEO now?
Yes, and then the other thing that was a great experience is serving on the board of directors. I guess for the last 20 years I've been on a few of our company boards. And so then you've now got that, not only the business immersion, but you've got that fiduciary immersion. And you immerse yourself. We've always believed in outside directors. So you immerse yourself with those outside directors, leaders in the industry or community, and you just continue to learn more, which is a lot different from the law firm.
We talked about how you assimilate to being a CEO coming from a different kind of a background than the traditional path. But what do you think you see from that CEO seat that maybe a more traditional industry leader might miss?
Well, I think having a law degree gives you the ability to critically analyze and think. So you have to make a lot of decisions. Y'all know in leadership there's a lot of ambiguity. It's not black and white. It's mainly gray. But it gives you a chance to quickly evaluate the facts and make the best decision you can before you at the time. So I think that ability to critically think and think critically, analyze, and make decisions kind of on the fly, which is what you're doing every day. I think the law degree does help you for that as well.
What was a lot harder than you thought it would be? Was there anything that you thought that would be kind of fairly straightforward, kind of simple, and suddenly it's not that way?
So I wouldn't say it was necessarily hard. I think the biggest adjustment from coming in from a law firm environment, 24 years ago, was the fact that now you've got a group of team members in what we call the executive leadership team. And And sometimes we've had different leadership teams throughout the year. Sometimes they're autonomous, sometimes they're working together. And so I think seeing that team environment and the politics environment in the corporate world was probably the biggest transition.
Yeah.
There's some politics?
There's a
did you
little
say?
politics in every business. So I just wasn't at the law firm long enough to see those politics there.
Yeah.
But the dynamics of everything from an entry-level engineer to someone who's nearing retirement, and to see the interplay amongst that is quite fascinating from a leadership perspective.
That is pretty interesting.
Thompson has been, the holding company, all of your companies together have been doing tremendously well. We've spoken a little bit about how the firm is different. General counsel at 200 folks, CEO who's not coming from engineering or architecture. I know, since I've been exposed to the firm has invested in outside non-executive board members. How important is that in general for Thompson and for you as the CEO?
Incredibly important. And I don't know that all companies understand the significance. We would love to lean on the expertise. We do love leaning on the expertise of our external directors who have successfully grown companies, and they've both succeeded and failed. So if you can learn the ingredients for their success and those that contributed to maybe things that didn't go as well, you've already got a leg up in your next decision. Yeah. And so we've had a former congressman, we've had a former mayor, we've had a former leader of 23 to 2,500 employees, backgrounds at URS. We've got backgrounds with one of our directors through Fluor, Shaw Environmental and Infrastructure, M&W America. So vast career where they've likely been there, done that. Yeah. While the industry has changed, a lot of things have stayed the same over the years.
Yeah, so, I like the way you put that, yeah.
You know, I think it's really interesting because, you know, a lot of people still think of Thompson as Thompson Engineering, but you really have become kind of this full family of businesses. Did the outside leadership kind of help you recognize the potential for the company to really be something different than a traditional engineering firm and really play in different markets?
You know, I would say that vision really probably formed back in 2003. And I think that the ability to have separate brands, because you could certainly have a single brand, but the ability to have certain brands is because of the leaders we have in those roles, those vast expertise in the industry, and the ability to have that brand expertise to penetrate those specific markets in technology, architectural engineering, and disaster response. So with that, you know, we're 100% employee-owned. I know we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And that contributes a lot to the importance of having a holding company from a governance and employee ownership perspective.
I did want to backtrack a little bit and ask you about transition, because you've been closely working on the leadership transition for many years, and now you're personally involved in it. Is there something that you learned going through it yourself personally that maybe you didn't fully appreciate before you had that experience?
Well, my predecessor went through a very comprehensive process for the succession planning and involved an external leadership coach and a battery of external leadership tests. So you learn a lot about yourself, things you didn't even know before you started the process. You challenge yourself. You find ways to improve as a leader, and that's a continuous journey, as you guys know. But that process was very, very unique. I would say unique. We created a vision. The candidates for the role created a vision, what they saw in the future of the companies. And it was really a rewarding experience. It really was. But not what you would expect. It's not just to come on into the office for an interview. It's a journey that you begin that really never ends.
Yeah.
So
it's you've been at the helm now for, was it 2 years?
Yeah.
And so
not quite 2 years.
Not quite 2 years. So certainly not a lot of time, but some time. How different are you from day one to now as a leader?
Yeah, so I would say that transitions aren't easy in leadership. And so that January 1, 2025, you're not going to just walk into a room and have trust and a great rapport. But it takes time. It takes time to develop relationships, for everybody to settle into what their roles are. And more important than that, it's not about me. It's not about our other leaders. We like to use the inverted pyramid. My predecessor came up with this, where if you flip the org chart upside down, you've got the clients at the top, followed by the employees, followed by the project leads, and way at the bottom is the executive team. So the humility in leadership is a continuous journey to realize what we're doing is bigger than one person alone. And it's been, the process of going into it was unique, and every day is unique as well.
Well, even seeing you in 2024, right at the beginning of your stewardship, if you will, I've seen a big change in just that time myself. You just seem like you've slotted into it. I think it's natural now. It's not new to everybody, and it was really good to see. So congratulations.
And thank you, Mark.
I think you continue to grow in that role. I'm seeing it firsthand. So,
And by the way, I didn't give him any of those notes, Mick, but that was a great compliment.
I apprate the check you sent for that.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard him say something?
This wasn't in the note.
Say something so nice.
Preparation.
Yeah. What the heck did I say? What's happening? Did I hit my head? So. You mentioned too that that this Thompson is it's more than just one firm now. We've added a lot of firms onto it. For a while, it was just people can hear Thompson, they might think Thompson Engineering, but today it's a family of businesses. When did you realize there was potential for something to actually build more than it was?
Yeah, really probably in 2011 when we started Thompson Consulting Services. We realized the power of that separate brand at the time. And then obviously Thompson Engineering or Watermark are very closely aligned with the engineering and architectural side. And then when we did the acquisition of SourceTode this year in January, SourceTode has a rich reputation both locally and internationally for the technology business. So there's the family of companies.
SourceTode. And how different is that culture at SourceTode? Or there must be some alignment with culture. I mean, it is technology, so it's a little bit different than the traditional services. Are they a little bit of a different cat?
They are. Their culture aligns closely with ours when you look at their core values. The office environment is a lot of fun, though. Yeah. I mean, you can go into the break room and you can find all the original video games that kids had growing up, the original Nintendo, every console game, and they just have so much fun in their office environment. They love to do things out of the office to celebrate milestones and success.
Very intelligent, and I just love being able to say Kanban and have somebody nod their head and say, "Yeah, I know exactly."
Yeah,
what
you
you're
had a
talking
chance
about.
to meet a few of our employees with SourceTode.
Well,
yeah, they were
Chad,
great.
I'd love to know too. I know technology was a big part of what you were excited to bring in, and bringing in SourceTode at the beginning of this year. How have the more traditional engineering and employees sort of embraced having new opportunities with the technology company joining?
Yeah, so it's exciting. We had a chance to visit in our strategy session with Mark a few weeks ago. We had a whole agenda item centering around technology. And Mick, you've talked a lot about how technology is revolutionizing the AEC industry. We viewed our growth and our rapid growth. If you look at the Thompson Holdings family of companies, in just 2000, we had a little over 300 employees. Today, we're approaching 900 employees. So when you look at that rapid growth, we've got to do things differently today than we did yesterday. And I love to use the word innovate. We've got to add, if we're emailing a document over to scan and sign back a signature, I know that's a simple example, but if we're not automating workflows from a shared services perspective, if we're not utilizing the technology before us that can help make the co-pilot to make us better. So there's been a lot of idea exchange, Katharine. What we're trying to do is zero in on strategies that can be targeted to the existing client footprint across 8 states, but also utilizing and leveraging SourceTode to become better internally from an efficiency side. And it's been, we're just into the journey. The first quarter was a getting to know period. So we're getting to know, we're refining the strategy. We're going to begin penetrating some clients in the third quarter and hopefully book some new client opportunities so they can see what we see in SourceTode in the fourth quarter.
You talk about 8 states, right? You're in 8 states as a business. And I remember the first time used that phrase with me was in a conversation we had last year. And I was actually fascinated by it, even though it speaks to the geographic footprint of the firm. There are 8 great states, right? I mean, it's a great place to have a family of companies headquartered or domiciled in, or with a real brand name recognition. Can you speak to how important those 8 states are to your success?
Well, and they're predominantly Southeast. These are bricks and mortar. Of course, Mick, we work outside of those states.
Yeah.
But the synergies that you have amongst adjacent Southeast states is really fun. So it may be a DOT client that has a disaster opportunity. It may be a disaster opportunity that has an engineering opportunity to these. And those relationships across the states and the cross-selling between our disaster company, Thompson Consulting Services, and Thompson Engineering, it's special to see.
And how do you handle SEC rivalries across those 8 states?
You know, just like politics, we keep football out of it.
I understand. Okay,
We keep football out of it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you with Sourcetoad, that was an acquisition. Lots of firms make acquisitions, and it's one thing to make an acquisition. It's another to have these acquisitions actually strengthen the enterprise. What is the difference?
Yes. You mentioned earlier the M&A. I've chaired the M&A committee. And what probably the most rewarding experience from that is that we've had a lot more conversations than we've had acquisitions. And it's that cultural alignment that you look for. And you can sort of see it when you enter the room with a potential seller. Are they in this for the highest price, for just a transition and then they're done? Or are they in it for their employees? They have a yearning for their employees to become employee owners and for the future. And that's sometimes hard to find. And sometimes you don't find it till the second or third meeting. Sometimes you don't see it till the LOI gets over. Mm-hmm. My favorite line in this there is that we're probably not going to be the highest offer you ever get, but I hope we provide the most unique offer for the end of your careers, but also the transition for your employees to become employee owners in our ESOP. And so, but that's not for everybody. Some folks are wanting different things in transactions from the seller perspective. I know y'all have noticed that throughout the years.
Yeah. No, it's. I really like the phrase, we've had more conversations than we've made acquisitions, right? Because I know you and your team learn from those conversations. It's a two-way street, and that the acquisitions that you have made then, you know, you're fully baked almost by the time you make the announcement.
And you learn something from a leadership perspective yourself when you see other leaders, positive and negative things. I mean, we've had one acquisition where they had received an offer from a much bigger company, and it just didn't feel right. And they loved the concept of employee ownership, the teams, and joined us. And then not only that, they gave some of the opportunities back to the employees from years of service bonus that could have easily been distributed to the owners. So when you find an alignment like that where it's centered around the employees, not necessarily the money on the table, but bringing everybody along with it, that's a special thing.
Yeah.
Incredibly.
Well, you know, you're what I'm hearing from you is that you spend more time making the assessments than the decisions. And a lot of times that's flip-flopped, but I always believe it's more about the assessment and spending at least twice as much time on that and then the decision. It seems like that's the pattern you followed.
100%, yeah.
Sorry, Katharine.
You know, I think it's really special when you find that firm that's very much aligned with your culture, your values, and you know you're bringing people into the firm that are aligned with it. You know, but on the other side of it, you're also heavily involved in the governance. You know, not exactly a topic that gets people fired up at conferences, but what have you learned about the connection between governance and growth as you look to expand Thompson Holdings?
Well, I think the governance is critical for growth. And I know we've all heard the story about firms that have grown rapidly but don't bring the governance along with it. And then they see consequences where they don't chart their own journey moving forward. It could be decisions about employee stock that they had. It could be the composition of their board. It could be decisions on projects that they made entering a high-risk market. And so we have a concept of governance that is not meant to be, punitive, not meant to have a finger on. We want folks to be able to have the autonomy and leaders to have the autonomy to grow and develop business opportunities, new markets. And the governance perspective that we bring, we talked about it earlier, our board of directors, they bring a great knowledge base to us, continue to bring a knowledge base. So the intersection of governance and growth, I think they align. And if you're not focused on governance while you grow, I think you may miss some opportunities, or you may find yourself in an untenable position in the future. And then, Mick, that reminds me of some of the stories you've shared in the past where there are firm names that aren't in existence anymore. Do you think some of that's from governance as well?
Governance, complacency, external board members not doing their job when they should have done their job.
Yeah.
But governance or lack thereof, particularly at critical junctures, is so important.
Yeah.
You've got great outside board members, Mick. I think you've probably seen effective and ineffective board members in your career.
Yeah, I've been, again, since I've become exposed to Thompson Holdings, about a decade ago, I was blown away with who they would have on their board and how they would engage their folks. And it's for me, you want to have external board directors who you trust, also who you get along with. I mean, you want to have good chemistry, but you also want external board members that'll say, no, you're screwing up, or no, this is not good for the firm. And that's a whole 5 dysfunctions of a team thing taken to another level. And I think I've my observations of governance at Thompson would suggest that you guys work at that
Absolutely.
pretty hard.
They'll challenge us, and they'll pat us on the back as well.
Yeah.
Governance isn't a topic that'll get people fired up on the surface, but it's really important, and you have to balance governance and growth. How do you do that? So
I think to answer that question, we probably need to think back to the structure of the organization, 100% employee-owned. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes governance, the discussion of governance, come naturally, that intersection, because every decision you make doesn't affect if the two of us own the company 50-50.
Right.
It affects every employee owner. So the governance and growth conversations happen at every level of the organization and every company, which is kind of neat because they're thinking like owners.
Yeah.
So that comes a little bit more natural to us, because it's a team approach to governance. It's not a top-down approach. It's almost a client-driven all the way down to the executive approach versus the inverse of that.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark. Just
no, go ahead.
But this harkens back, Katharine and Mark, to the last conversation we had on the last podcast with Steve Mackay of DLR, also an ESOP, and he talked about the power of the ESOP and the connectivity that it brings throughout the firm. And not just connecting, but also aspirational for the firm. Yeah.
What is the biggest misconception of ownership? What's the biggest misperception that people have about employee ownership?
So I think the couple of misperceptions probably come to mind. One, employees may think that employee ownership is just for the executive level. No, it's for every single employee at the organization, and they each and every one of them have an opportunity to grow. The other misperception is that if they're an employee owner, that it changes their approach to what they do every day. No, it actually enhances that approach every day. So I think those are probably the top two that come to mind. The other, I think, misperception is that employee ownership isn't going to create value for me, depending on what level they are on the organization. And I've got a story I can share with you guys that the opposite of that is true as well. So I think until they understand the plan and understand that it's for everyone, and that no single employee is a majority shareholder or owns a significant number of shares, I think that's probably the biggest misperception. When they think employee ownership, they probably think, that doesn't mean me, I'm just starting on day one.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, at what point does someone stop being an employee and start thinking like an owner? Is there a moment when that switch flips?
Well, Katharine, you've identified one of the biggest opportunities we have in the future, which is with our rapid growth, to make sure that ownership culture permeates the employee that's been with us for 50 years or 5 days. And so, our ESOP was founded back in 96, 97, when the Thompson family had an opportunity to sell the business. And a group of employee owners came together and said, we'd like to chart our own course. And they made a real bold move. They formed an ESOP. And back then, to form an ESOP, they had to buy shares. They had to sign bank guarantees personally. And they said, we're going to do this together. And that's pretty special. We were celebrating our share value. We love to do a celebration every year. I like to bring the fun because it's important. We're all working so hard. It's good to have some fun, but we love to have a share value celebration. And after the share value celebration, 3 of us spoke. And after that celebration, I went to the back of the room and saw one of our employees. He was very quiet, subdued. And I said, how are you doing? And he goes, this is amazing. He said, I'm a millionaire now. And he'd been with the firm for 25 years. And he was one of the group that was around that time of the original founding as well. And to see that celebration was neat. In terms of the day-to-day, it's up to me as our culture. You can see on the back of the mug here, and that's a mindset. I like to say we're built different. We're built different because it's not up to one of us; it's up to all of us to come together as an effective team. And when you create an ownership culture that celebrates the core values, that rallies around helping each other, that creates opportunities for every employee, they can feel that when they come through the door. It's hard to describe, but they can feel it. And we just recently did a video shoot that was completely unscripted, much like this. And employees from across our companies came together and said, what does it mean to be part of an employee-owned group of companies? And that'll make a grown man cry to watch that.
Yeah.
So that's when you know. When you see your employee owners come together to make a video like that, under no stress to say, you better do this video again, Mark.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when you know it's working.
I think another misperception about employee ownership for folks that don't understand employee ownership or ESOPs, a misperception that employees get to make all the management decisions. All employees do. That's not the case, right? You've got great governance. You've got clear roles for leadership, for managers, for your project managers, for employees. Everybody doesn't get to make every decision.
Well, that's a great point. And when you do it right, the culture of an employee-owned company, they trust the leaders to make those decisions. And they've got great confidence in the skill of the leaders throughout each subsidiary in the entire organization to do that.
So you've watched employee ownership through all kinds of weather, recessions, record years, everything in between. What have you learned about human nature from that experience?
So it's certainly more enjoyable to share the annual share value when it's increasing.
Yeah.
That's the first observations we've made. Employee owners have been with us through the ups and the downs. The industry over the last few years has been record-setting. We saw the best year in my predecessor's year in the company's history, never thought it could be beaten, and in 25 it was a beat. So these are fun times to celebrate employee success, and it's an opportunity to really leverage the success of an ESOP to have that sheer celebration. But the key is that you've got to be focused on growth as an ESOP. An ESOP that's not growing and exploring new ground and having opportunities to create career paths for employee owners to grow and be with our companies and to create the ability to recruit new employees is an ESOP that's not going to be successful.
Yeah.
So,
and you can get cash flow issues that catch up with you, right?
You sure can.
I sat on a number of boards during the Great Recession that were ESOPs, and the repayment obligations, if you're headed the wrong direction, not so great.
Correct. Yes. And that growth period to be that awkward size of 200 employees.
Yeah.
When I started to the side, we always would say, Mick, we need to be 600 employees.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's a hard journey through that period of recessions in that 13, 14 period.
Yeah.
You got to buckle up and get ready for the ride.
Well, it's so interesting that you mentioned the org structure that you refer to, the inverted pyramid. Through the Great Recession, I would invert org structures to put the executives right in the middle, and then every client-facing individual around in a circle. And essentially, we're attacking the market everywhere. And corporate's job is to make sure that we're feeding all the resources necessary to everybody to attack the market.
360 degrees.
360. I
Yeah,
said I never
that's a
even
great
thought about
visual.
that.
Outside
External environment was outside. Yeah, thank you for
Yes. Did you get that?
Yeah, got that. Great.
So I want to go back to M&A for a minute.
I think that makes sense.
And I want to ask you about you mentioned you chaired the M&A committee. What's something you've learned about acquisitions that has nothing to do with valuations or financials or structure?
Yeah, I think Katharine alluded to it early on. When you get involved through that, either the initial meeting all the way to that closing where you sign the dotted line, it's a journey. And I think the misperception on M&As is you're going to go meet, you're going to sign an LOI, and then you're done. But it's a journey. I always joke, I have a fourth child. If you're courting an M&A candidate, you have a fourth child because you're as much of a counselor along the way.
Yeah.
Checking in, making sure they're comfortable. Because one thing I've learned, these are very personal decisions. And it's easy to say, oh, yeah, sure they would. But when you live that, Mark, and you see the personal decisions they make and the anxiety the sellers go through to make the choice, but then the happiness they have once they do it, that's something special.
Mm-hmm.
It
really is.
And you get there, and congratulations, you're at the starting line. Because now you got to integrate it and actually get to work. What's that like?
100%. You've got to make sure it's a team approach from an integration perspective. You also have to pace yourself and set measurable goals, but not goals that are overwhelming. And so we've been successful in bringing in companies, and some have branded already into Thompson Engineering, bringing in successful companies with successful businesses and trying not to do too much too fast, whether that's a name change, whether that's a reporting structure. I would say the number one thing on integration is they're all different, and make sure you pace yourself and pace the seller and let them have input in the process. They want nothing more than to be successful, to create a 1 + 1 = 3 or 4. But if you leave them out of it, I think you're missing a great opportunity.
Chad, ENR number 126, is that right? Thereabouts?
127.
127. Apologies to 126, sorry. 127, 600 employees. How important will inorganic growth, i.e. acquisitions, be in the future of the firm?
They'll be important. We've had, I was thinking of the numbers on the flight over here. We've had more success with organic growth than we have M&A in terms of the numbers. Not in terms of outputs and success, but just in terms of sheer employee count. We've hired more employees organically. M&A has been a key part of it, but it's going to continue to be a part of it. We are not doing multiple acquisitions per year. We're usually trying to target 1 or 2 solid acquisitions because one thing we found from a growth perspective is they take a lot of time to bring on that many employees, to integrate them successfully, and then also to continue with your day jobs.
What's the context for future acquisitions? Is it the strategic plan that you both have been working on with your team, or do they come up from different business units and they say, this is what we need?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Some of the best acquisitions have been companies that are ready for a transition. These might be smaller acquisitions, about 15 employees, where there's a relationship and they know them. But I would say both externally sourced. You guys have sourced some candidates for us, but also internally sourced opportunities.
Yeah. Okay.
Chad, I have to ask, what has growing a firm taught you about patience?
100%.
That you have done?
I heard a funny quote once from one of our from a client that said, "I'm a very patient person. I just don't like to wait." But patience, I think, in everything we do every day, I think patience is critical, and you do have to pace yourself to realize some of these things are going to take time to develop and nurture, and develop strategies around. And if you empower everyone around you to make those decisions and to be a part of that process, I think the results are pretty significant. So I've been around leaders in the past that aren't patient, that make quick decisions, that don't bring employees along with them and leaders along with them. And I think the result is certainly not as successful as it would be if you're empowering and engaging.
So true.
I've just thought of a whole new business line for us to collaborate with Thompson Holdings on.
What's that?
So the most important skill in pickleball is patience. Most important skill that you're talking about is leadership, in leadership, right? Patience. Let's bring those both
It's
together.
just- we're going to have to do some
Yeah.
significant hiring.
Yeah.
Is this a
on that idea.
tournament coming?
Well, I'm just wondering, is there a monetary opportunity
Absolutely
for
is.
coining that phrase? This
Yeah.
could be a great opportunity for our employee owners.
Yeah.
Chad, you spend a significant amount of time on community organizations and serve as the chairman of both the Thompson Foundation and Feeding the Gulf Coast. Has this experience changed the way you think about the leadership or success?
It has. None of us would be successful as an individual or as companies without our clients and the communities. And so whether it's volunteering at Feeding the Gulf Coast as chairman of the board, and that particular organization focuses on hunger. And, it adds a lot of perspective to what you do every day when you don't have those food insecurities. You couldn't imagine being successful as a leader, an employee, coming together with food hunger. So that's added a lot of very rewarding to me to give back my time as chairman of Feeding the Gulf Coast. And what an impactful organization where you can see the benefits that provides every day for feeding the hungry. And then our foundation at Thompson was formed back in connection with Thompson Engineering's 50th anniversary. And it's neat, we have a committee, and it's a lot of our employee owners from across our companies are on it. Our whole foundation is premised on employee involvement and volunteering in the community. So we don't choose 2 or 3 organizations to give. We've given to over 250 organizations, sometimes year over year, and we're celebrating employees' volunteer activities in the communities more than we are just cherry-picked charities that we can donate to. And what we find is you see the tangible benefits and the impacts when they're employee-driven requests. So,
Chad, when your career is over someday, what do you hope people say you helped build?
well, I mentioned it earlier that I like to bring a little fun to what can be a very serious environment. And I like to use a phrase at the office and in communication that I have with employees called #BestJobEver. And we genuinely want every employee, and I know it sounds cliche, Mark, best job ever. But if you think about that, we spend more time at the office than we do at home. And we spend more time with our coworkers than our family. I think the generation in the future might flip that. We could do a whole nother podcast on that. So, one, I want folks to realize they're an employee owner. They've been able to celebrate a culture and a retirement that they wouldn't otherwise have without being a part of something special like that. They have fun coming to work every day. They enjoy it. They come to work with a smile and leave with a smile. And that they've had opportunities to develop in their careers and do things they may never thought they would have had opportunities to do, much like I did when I walked through the door in 2002 as that lawyer in the suit, wanting every single period and comma in the contract to be perfect. So,
All right, it's that time, Mick. It is time for Word to the Wise.
I'm looking forward to this one, Mark.
Your favorite feature of our podcast. So, Chad, we ask our guests for some wise words. And so you started with a business degree, concentration in finance. You became a lawyer. You helped shape an ESOP. You led acquisitions. You worked in governance. You started the Thompson Holdings Foundation, served in board roles for more than 20 years, and eventually became CEO. So now looking back from all of that, what unexpected detour or opportunity ended up teaching you the most? And what does that tell young professionals about building a career?
no, what a great question, Mark. I bet Mick gave you that question to ask. Unexpected opportunities. I would say the unexpected opportunity was for Thompson to trust in me from that very first day 24 years ago. To give me that, I mentioned jokingly that I began, and it was true, as the director of HR and general counsel simultaneously. As a small firm, we had to be nimble. We had to make decisions quickly. And they saw me come in with positive energy and said, well, we'll just get Chad to do it. So whether that's having direct reports in the business services, those unexpected opportunities that I would say were peppered throughout, and Mick would kill me if I really answered this question because it would take an hour. But those unexpected opportunities peppered throughout that career until January 1 of 2025 made me a better person today. The detours, I would say, in whatever career you have, I think you're going to have ups and downs in periods of success. And we went through some periods of hard growth and commitment where we had to grind and make very tough decisions. We had to reduce employees through the recession, much like many firms did. And being a part of that, being a part of the adversity that has, I think made me a better leader. So you know that it's not always about making the easiest of decisions. And back then I was director of HR, so I had the opportunity to go sit down in those meetings with reductions in force, and they were tough. But the way we handled that and the leadership we put into that made all the difference in the world. So.
Well, it's been great having you join us. I know you were at our CEO event. I was with you a couple of weeks ago. You probably had it by now, but we appreciate you being here and being such a great guest.
We appreciate Morrissey Goodale and the insight that you all have in the I say AEC space. It goes beyond architectural and engineering, has made us a better group of companies. The word on the street, the publications you have, Mick, are second to none, and we love sharing those with our employee owners, get them to subscribe to the email for Morrissey Goodale. So thank you all for being leaders in the industry.
Thank you.
Chad.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today, and thank you, and thanks to our viewers as well. And as always, please like and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time on the street.